You got into this specific type of law rather early on. We're talking almost 15 years ago now, if I'm not mistaken. How did you find this specific avenue of law?
So I like to think of myself as a very good blend of both of my parents, who obviously have been a huge inspiration in my life. My father was a practicing lawyer for my entire time I was a child, all the way through high school, and then he became a judge when I went to college. And my mother, on the other hand, was a working mom my whole life, and she worked her way through the Child Protective Services in Monroe County, from being a caseworker all the way up to retiring as an administrator. So I like to think my job here and working on child abuse cases specifically is just the perfect blend of both of them. You're taking some of what my dad did in the legal field, but also some of the social worker elements of what my mom did and the things that my mom instilled in me as what's important to teach your kids and to how to help the community.
The fact that you grew up with it, has that helped you avoid what I would suspect is pretty common in this side of things, which is burnout?
No, I don't think that's ever avoidable. I do think that I'm a dinosaur in this field, which is unfortunate because I think that this field is so important to have the training and the experience for all parties involved, for the kids that you're helping, for the defendants that you're prosecuting or potentially prosecuting or choosing not to prosecute. I think that it's super important to have that experience, and I think it's very sad that people burn out. That being said, that hasn't crossed my mind. I haven't had those moments where I've said, this is too much. But you get up and you do it again because you feel good about it, I think.
Our outlook on life is often shaped by what we see, and it can evolve over time. Given the trajectory of your career and everything you've seen, I'm just wondering if that's influenced how you look at the world.
I'm in this unit, so it's now special victims. So it's both child abuse and adult sex crimes, but primarily most of my career has been focused on child abuse, physical abuse, and sex abuse. And I think that if I wasn't in this particular spot in this office, I may not be here anymore. I want to be here because, in my opinion, this is the place where if you could stop child abuse, then I think you could stop all the other things that are happening out on our streets, right? So the violence, I think that the violence, the repeat sexual offenders, I think that would all go away if you could somehow fix child abuse and fix the way our community treats our kids. I enjoy very much getting involved in these kids' lives where they are, and I look forward to seeing them down the road doing great things. It doesn't always happen because sometimes the trauma they've been through is so significant and severe that unfortunately they can't dig out of that hole, but I like to have hope for the future when I see them and I'm working with them.
Speaking of trauma specialists over the last year at Bavona, at Resolve, they're saying this year has been particularly tough because of the situation where kids are at home more restrictions. Have you been noticing that as well?
Yeah, it was really interesting at first when everybody went in lockdown, and I know you guys have reported on this before, and you weren't seeing the reports coming in. And so one would look at it and say, oh, child abuse must be, really dropping off, and you guys are going to be, not so busy this year and your numbers aren't high. But I think what it was is that these kids were not in front of mandated reporters. They weren't in front of people that could help them. They're safe people. They were just at home and they were stuck and they nobody was able to put eyes on them. And maybe even as simple as a toddler that might not go to school but is normally out with their parents at the corner store, at Wegmans, somewhere where other people could put eyes on them, and maybe their parent wouldn't take them if they had, marks on them. I think that compounded everything. And what happened is a lot of significant physical abuse in younger kids we saw. And then once the schools opened, significant volumes of sexual abuse cases coming out, which I guess we weren't surprised by because kids were finally there with safe people and able to tell. So yes, I think it has upticked a lot since the world's kind of starting to reopen. But it was a bad time for a lot of kids.
This exists in our community, and there are probably a lot of people, because it's not front page, it's not something we report on a lot. We shouldn't put our head in the sand and think this isn't happening.
Right. So yes, people putting their head on their pillow at night and thinking that, I live in Spencerport or Penfield or the city of Rochester, and these things don't happen to the kids here. These things aren't happening to the kids next door to me. And that's an easy way to look at life and to think, I don't hear about it on the news, and the news is reporting on all these other things, but they're not reporting on sex abuse of children, intrafamilial sex abuse or physical abuse. That's the wrong thing to think for anybody in the community. I tell my friends who are reporters, you could report on any case in my filing cabinet right now, and oftentimes, I guess you guys probably do right now, but at other times when I haven't had cases that were so newsworthy, you could report on any of them. Any of them are so egregious and would probably shock the conscience of most people. But I get it. It's not something that you want to put on the 5 o'clock news. People don't want this in their face all the time. Like, this kid was sexually abused, and this kid was sexually abused, and this kid, almost died. It's a terrible thing to think about. I often say that I'm a really bad dinner party guest because my stories are sometimes sad, and they're sometimes leave people with just feeling broken up and even crying at times. Not that I intentionally do that, but
Right.
It's just not good topics.
There must be a huge amount of reward in helping to close some of these cases. Is there one that stands out to you?
I think I would be missing the big picture if I didn't say Brooke Stagels and her death and how that impacted me and how it impacted the community. That was a huge case. It was hugely reported in the media, and I think rightfully so. Everybody was interested in the outcome of that case, and everybody was interested in it, I think, because of the opportunities that were missed to help that child along the way from all sorts of different people. And I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying, you saw the amount of people that saw her in the days leading up to her death and that could have saved her, right, and that didn't. So I think that always had a big impact on me. Like, how can we do better? Like, in that case, how can we do better as, I'm not talking about any particular agency, I'm talking about the community as a whole, that you're seeing a child literally dying before your eyes. What can you do? And why are we so reluctant to get involved with that? But also, there's a lot of cases that weren't in the media that really stick out to me. Some terrible intrafamilial sex abuse cases where I have worked with amazing little kids and sometimes teenagers who are so strong. And when they get into that courtroom, you're like, you can't believe it, right? Because I swear I sit there and, I say to my best friend, who also is my deputy bureau chief here, Amanda Balling, every time we do one of these trials, you sit there and you wonder why you do this, because you are so nervous and you can't believe you're putting a kid through this by making him take the witness stand and having him tell what happened to them, and then having them get cross-examined, and just being in this totally foreign environment, and you just can't believe, like, there's got to be a better way. Why are we doing this? But at the end of the day, they just surprise you, and they do this awesome, amazing job up there, and you're like, and then everything else is easy. So sometimes I say, like, doing homicides are easier than doing a case where you got to call a kid witness, because it's heartbreaking to see, and it will never get old to me, and it will never become second nature to me, because it is so foreign to think about that.
How does the Hilton case compare to what you've been dealing with for years?
In generality, first, if you have a high-profile media case, right, that is a whole other ball game, right? Your persona has to be different. As prosecutors, we have to, watch what we say on particular cases. We have very tight ethics on what we can and cannot say. And it also adds a different layer of pressure. I mean, you have the public looking at you, viewing you. I mean, during the Stagels case, when people are like live tweeting from the courtroom, it puts on, you have a whole other set of pressures on you that kind of aren't there on your average everyday case. But also on any case where you have, because we know, anybody working in the field, that more than 90% of kids are abused by someone they know, love, and trust. But I think the factor that's like makes it higher is, I mean, most of the time we're seeing, you know, interfamilial abuse. It's when you have that authority figure, that person of trust. Let's go back to Joe Flowers, Pastor Flowers, that I prosecuted years ago, who is the bishop of a church, and really was the only father figure for a lot of these boys in the church. He's in a position of power and authority. I've prosecuted other teachers who have taken advantage of that authority. Those are a little bit different because we hold them out to be, we put them on a different level. You know, teachers and pastors and religious leaders and principals, we put them on a different level. We trust our kids with them, and so I think that also, you know, means something different when you're prosecuting these cases.
So the bureau that you work in is one section of the DA's office. What does it look like on the second floor?
Yeah, so we are on the second floor, and the second floor is all special victims unit and domestic violence, and that encompasses, so my specific unit encompasses child abuse, adult sex crimes, and also any type of internet crimes, internet facilitated crimes against children. So there are 5 other attorneys besides myself that work in the unit. We all have very specialized training and skills to be here. Everybody that is in the bureau has requested to be here. I don't think Sandra would ever put somebody here that didn't have that desire, because to me that's the first thing you need. I mean, there's people that walk around on the 8th floor and go, oh God, I don't know how you do what you do. I can't do those cases. I can't prosecute them. So we're a specialized unit here, and I think we have a real sense of camaraderie amongst each other because you know, you have to. And also with other agencies. So, you know, you mentioned Bavona. So Bavona, the Rochester Police Department, I mean, all of our partners in law enforcement, Child Protective Services. I mean, there's a very small group of people that are doing a very large amount of casework to help kids. And the DA's office is kind of just the end game, right? So, yeah, you'll see me on TV a lot because I'm, you know, getting the indictment or the conviction or something like that. But man, the behind the scenes work that these people are doing in like CPS, the ones that are out of Bavona, and our law enforcement partners, it's thankless. And I know that they have a hard rack these days. And I know that it's difficult for a lot of them to continue to do this work. But the ones that I work with in all of our law enforcement partners are unbelievable, and it takes a special kind of police officer to get involved in these cases. I'll tell you that right now, because it's not the kind of thing that you're like in the academy and you're like, I want to go out and arrest the bad guy. They don't want to be sitting talking to kids that have been, you know, neglected and are eating their own feces or, you know, battered, and you know, I've had police officers cry on the witness stand before. I mean, that's not something that you see every day because the cases are so traumatic.